Deep within her pupils, where light itself cannot escape, the darkest point of view, fueled by fire and raw hate, shaking hands with the devil, a gleam in her eyes. She just signed a contract, stipulating terms of your demise. Alone with the Reaper, she stands upon a hill. The only color from gray and black is red dripping from his hawk bill. As his mirrored scalpel swings softly toward your head, she wonders will you see as it's rolling off your neck. She wonders will you feel the breeze as it blows against your face, or does it all end when your eyes begin to glaze?
Hey guys, it's Uncle Stitch. Thank you for joining me again for another knife review. Today we were talking about the Talisong Z. This was a collaboration between Eldon Tali and Flytanium. For the people who aren't aware of who Eldon Tali is, he is a master engineer of a knife maker. I'm actually friends with that guy on Facebook. His knife designs are some of the most iconic looking knives I've ever seen. If I was going to be caught with a knife, I'd want to be caught with one of his. I don't know how to describe it, but he's highly talented in a specific way. Most of his designs have more than just a look in mind. As you can see with the knurled diamond shaped engravings, precision engravings on the handle there, that is for control of the Talisong. This entire design is made this knife to be, of all the knives that I have flipped, I would put this at second when it comes to the best knives that I've ever flipped. What I'm comparing this to is the BRS Alpha Beast, the BRS Bare Bones, the Alpha Beast, both the sandwich style and the Chab. The BRS Bare Bones version 1, version 2, and the aluminum handles. The Benchmade 51 Morpho. I've had Benchmade 51 Morphos with fly tie scales. I've also had them with copper scales. The 62, I've had that with squiggle scales and 2 different sets of Flytanium scales. The Benchmade Necron, the Benchmade 87 Ti, the Microtech Tachyon 3, the Hom Basilisk, the Hom Tempest. Trying to think of the other ones. Let me go look at my collection real quick, because I know I'm forgetting some. The Maxis Covenant, and the, what's the other Maxis? I can't remember the name of it. Let me grab it real quick. Whatever the fuck this one is, I can't even remember the name of this one. Out of the 20 knives that I just named, this is second on my list for best flippers that I've ever had. And we're talking about years and years and years of experience flipping these knives. So I get to know them pretty well. The things that I wanted to go over about this knife. So this does run on ball bearings. Ball bearings, to a lot of people, I think it started off with the Tachyon 3. when they put ball bearings into that knife, there was a type of delay that flippers weren't used to, because they were used to knives that flipped on washers and had more of an immediate response to momentum. That's not the case for this. This has immediate response when you're flipping, so there is no delay when you're throwing aerials, which is where delay would fuck up an aerial severely, I think the most. But it is seamless. As far as why people get involved in the trade, there's people that just want to learn tricks, and there's people that take this seriously as a sport. There's what's called speed flippers. There's old school flippers that are more slow and methodical, and just have a flow to them. This would fit every genre. And when this was released, May 28th of 2021, so this is a 5-year-old knife. In the 5 years since this thing has been released, I have never flipped another Talisong like this. This is, I'm not just saying that this is the second best out of any knife that I've ever flipped. It actually is. When I had first purchased this, it went out of stock on Blade HQ and Knife Center. So I freaked out and thought that I wasn't going to be able to get my hands on them again. So I didn't use it. I quit using it. You can see the little scrapes and dings from where it's been dropped. And they are back up for sale. I believe they come in at a price point around $299. When I purchased this knife, I bought it on the secondary market, and the guy who sold it to me was having such a difficult time selling the trainer version of this knife that he literally just gave me the trainer version of this knife, which is also $299 for purchasing the knife. I don't flip trainers. For those of you who follow my channel, every knife I've ever flipped has been sharp, so I have zero use for I guess practicing with a dull or a trainer blade. I did run across a chick a couple of years ago, and she wanted to learn how to flip, so I gave her the trainer, because the difference between people who take this seriously and people that want to learn a thumb roll over or two to look cool for 10 seconds is part of this whole deal is being stabbed and bleeding and going through pain and continuing to over and over again, each time expecting a different result, continue to flip. And that's how you learn. And if there's no repercussions for screwing up, then you're never going to learn. And the problem with learning with a trainer is that if you learn a bunch of tricks on a trainer, when you actually get a real knife in your hand, you're going to fuck up constantly, because you're going to be nervous about being cut. You learn things as you're being cut that you want the knife to be sharp, because your cuts will heal faster. I'm bringing all of this up because this is also something that Eldon Talley put into this knife that is very important, and that is the AEBL steel. AEBL steel was patented in 1928. Udo Holm was the name of the guy that patented. In 1961, Udo Holm was producing 85% of the world's razor blades. AEBL steel has a extremely fine carbide structure, and if you look at it with a microscope, it's one of the smoothest surfaces of any steel ever created. So because of that, that is why it is able to take and hold in an extreme apex. The HRC of this is 63. So we've got a Rockwell hardness of 63, which is really, really high, which means that the edge will stay the way that it is for a very, very long time. It's also easy to maintain. And being that high of a Rockwell hardness, it's actually really easy to sharpen these and maintain your own knives. So literally, everything about this was all of the ingenuity that was put into this was designed for the flipper. It was designed for the Talisong enthusiast that wanted to learn tricks. This came in at around 4.25 ounces, which is exceedingly light. That's like, what, a fourth or a fifth of a pound. So we're talking featherweight here. This somewhere along the same class as the Benchmade 51, which has G10 scales and those little tiny, slim titanium, those jeweled titanium inserts. It's an extremely light knife, and it was designed solely for the speed flipper to excel at what they wanted to do. This beats every design that I've flipped. I've flipped like when it comes to the basilisk, I've had 2 different titanium basilisks. I've had the G10 basilisk, I've had the carbon fiber basilisk. I've had multiple Tachyon 3s. I have not flipped the titanium one, but the titanium one is heavier. Out of a decade of experience, this is my second favorite knife, and the only knife that I'm putting ahead of this is the knife that I have tattooed on my arm. The BRS Replicant. The BRS Replicant was the knife that I decided to learn on. That's where I learned the difference between learning tricks and creating a routine, and then adding tricks into that routine, and then basically achieving freestyle status. So that knife is permanently burned into my brain as the best knife ever, because that's the knife that I learned on. It's kind of like, you know, if you learned on a Gibson and then somebody handed you a fucking Alvarez acoustic, you'd be like, okay, well, I'm glad I learned on this Gibson. We have Nick with us in this review here, and I thought it'd be interesting to kind of like open up any thoughts and opinions from somebody that this is a very dark art. Most people don't just continue to stab themselves all the time and keep doing it. That's, you know, referred to as emo or whatever. We are far different from emo people, I'll tell you that. But you know, the ingenuity that was put behind this is a masterpiece. And again, you know, Eldon Talley, Terry Gwynn, these are guys that just have an insane perception of the world, and it's beautiful. What do you think about all this, Nick?
Well, what you've explained about this knife and the uniqueness of the materials, especially of the steel, is captivating. Especially, you know, the backstory of where it derived from, all the way to the actual texture of the handle itself. I mean, I absolutely know nothing. So, you know, just from what I've heard, you know, I mean, it seems like it's a very high quality knife. I've been at least observing through Zach's endeavors with all these new knives, and you know, if I take his word for it when he says something's significant.
Yeah, these are definitely these are definitely pieces of art. Um, the one of the other things that people were afraid of when it came to the aluminum handles was they were afraid that the aluminum handles would eventually develop pivots as the knife is being as a knife is being manipulated. Well, one of the things that they did to solve that issue was they put Zen pins in there for the back of the blade to rest against. So what they did was they alleviated the possibility of the knife slowly degrading due to usage. Um, I think Eldon Tally and Flytanium, when they put this together, they had the flipper in mind, they had the collector in mind. Um, they wanted to put out a competitive product, and when this was released, the BRS replicant was still available. They come in batches, but the BRS replicant was out there. I believe the Chab had just came out. That was like a new thing, the Channel Alpha Beast. And I mean, that company had a myriad of competitors. And of all the competitors that they have, they put so much thought into this knife to create longevity that this is going to be the one that stands the test of time. This is going to be the one that in 30 years from now is still going to be in just the same condition that it is, from the steel from the blade to the entire ingenuity and construction of the handles. I know recently there's been some aluminum handled Talisongs that have came out, and they've been complete disasters because they didn't use Zen pins. Actually, I might have a example. I do. So this is the Tachyon 3, and as you're manipulating the knife, there's tang pens, and they will rest in that little cup. In that little cup of the knife. And people were afraid, how will aluminum hold up when steel is constantly banging up against it? Will it eventually give way? And the fact that they, instead of using tang pins, they use Zen pins, they've completely eliminated the fear of that. When you're spending $300 on a Talisong, you want it to, for a lot of people, that is a lot of money. To some people, it's a lot of money. To some people, it's kind of like, that's like 2 tanks of gas for me, for an example. That's, not that big of a deal. But, will these increase in value? I don't know. I know that they will only increase when they don't sell them anymore, and the demand outweighs supply. Same thing that's happened for just about every other knife that has been decent. And I think that this is a highly underrated knife that a lot of people, I don't even know if they know about them. There's a lot of new people getting involved in flipping, and they're all buying these Kershaw Lucas and little $100, $200 knives, and I really think that they're missing out on something amazing. As far as the enjoyment that I get out of this when I flip it, I think one of my favorite attributes is the clacking that the knife makes when you're manipulating it. It almost sounds like you're snapping a neck. I mean, it just has this this distinctive. I'll do it with my. It's much louder with that. It's a very distinct clacking noises. Some knives that I have ring like a bell. Those are very pleasing to flip. because when you open them up, they make that shing, that that noise that you hear in the movies when somebody picks up a kitchen knife, and it's obviously sound effects. Well, they actually make those noises, and I really enjoy the attention to detail that was spent in producing that, because I'm sure that with the channeled out aluminum handles, that acoustics were a part of the design. And they are very, very impressive acoustics that come out of the knife. I think, for a beginner's knife, I would start with this one. If you're going to go down the road of not flipping with a trainer, which you should, in my opinion, this would be the road to go down with the Talisong Z. For a multitude of reasons. One is it's $300. If you lose titanium basilisk, if you lose a Benchmade 42, if you lose, the 87 Ti, I think people are paying retarded amounts of money for. I don't know why. Hell, back in the day, they were, I think, $500 or something, $580, and on the secondary market, they were selling for like $250 and $280 for years. You could find one brand new in box for like $350. And I would pick this over the 87 Ti. But again, if you lost it or something happened to it, it's only $300. It's not, you're not gonna not be able to pay your rent for purchasing one of these. It's not that, I think that this was designed for the entry-level flipper, and I think the entry-level flippers have been wildly overlooking this one. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. 63 HRC, I brought that up. Overall length is 10.25 inches. The blade length is 4.25. Overall length of the blade is 4.25, but the cutting edge is 4 inches. So you have 4 inches of solid cutting length, which is enough to penetrate the heart should you ever need to. 4.25 ounces. Oh, the clip point blade. That's another thing that I wanted to bring up. Was this is very similar to a Bowie style, but not quite. The swedge on the back of that is put there to make that tip extra sharp, almost needle-like sharp. It sinks into material. So clip points, if you're gonna get cut, that's gonna. I would like to say that that's actually going to go into you pretty deep, but for those of you who aren't familiar with this trade, the heavier the knife, the harder the cuts are. So yeah, it's sharp, but it's going to be sharp when you're actually using it to cut stuff. When you screw up a trick and it lands on you, it's not really heavy. It's heavy enough to penetrate your skin, but it's not heavy enough to put you in the hospital. And that's why this is like an excellent beginner's knife, because you're going to make mistakes. And if you do, you might as well have something that's as sharp as literally a scalpel, because it's going to heal by the time you wake up in the morning, and you won't even remember that it even happened. And it's not going to scar your skin. Dull knives scar skin. Dull knives leave marks that last forever. That's not what you want. You don't want, war stories are cool and all, but, when your hand looks like Freddy Krueger's face, I think you're going to appreciate having a sharp knife as opposed to a dull one. Let's see here. The precision milled 775 aluminum handles. Oh yeah, so that's aircraft grade aluminum that we're talking about here, which is pretty strong stuff. People get put off by aluminum, but this is the cream of the crop of the aluminum. Yeah, I think that's about it. The only other thing that I want to say about these bearings is this is the knife that I'm talking about, the Microtech Tachyon 3. I believe this was the first production knife that was specifically put out onto the market with ball bearings. As you flip that, the delay that's in speed, I want to press that issue because there's a lot of old school flippers that hear the word ball bearings and they're like, yeah, fuck that, I'll buy something with washers in it. And there's some people that are so tired of washers and they love the smoothness of ball bearings. Ball bearings have changed over the years. Things aren't, it takes mistakes to make a perfection. And at this day and age, there's so many companies out there that are using cheap materials and putting cheap crap out, that when you run across a jewel like this that will stand the test of time, and the entire ingenuity of the knife was designed for the flipper, for even the collector. These ball bearings, they're not going to wear down anytime soon. They're not going to seize up. Let me see if I can get kind of a close-up. There's almost nowhere for dirt to get inside of those bearings. You see that? See how slim that is? Yeah. I'll wait till it comes around again. Wait till it slows down. There's almost nowhere for dirt to get in those ball bearings. The Tachyon 3. Oh. Well, pretty much same deal. It's pretty close. But, dirt is not your friend when it comes to ball bearings, that's for sure. And with the precision milling of those aluminum handles, I think those ball bearings are pretty well protected from dirt. I've owned this thing for 3, maybe 4 years now, and I've never had any issues. And this actually has been EDC'd. This has been taken to work. This has been used to cut things. When I saw it disappearing off of Blade HQ, I freaked right out and put it away. And then I started buying other knives to EDC, but this is one of my favorites. So I just wanted to take some time out of my day to let you guys know what my thoughts and opinions are of this knife. It is absolutely beautiful. This is one of the knives that I write poetry to. I've wrote poetry to many of the Bela songs, but these strike a deepness in my heart. They are I don't know, they are a very large part of my life. And when you spend your life with something, you develop a love for it. And that, with the Talisong Z, it has definitely been a pleasant experience. So when I run across a knife like that, that is where my poetry comes from. That is why I spend so much time. The Japanese, the samurai, used to do that from time to time. They would write poetry, they obviously haiku, about their art of a blade that they had, that they lived with. And I don't really write haiku, but right along the same path, I do write poetry to knives. But all right, guys, well, we'll catch you later, and thanks for joining me for another review. Peace.